Welcome back to the Horn Takes podcast. I am Sean Redfern, and I am very, very excited to do this show. We are back with the bullpen. We've got our man Marc Pena from Occupy Left Field. We've got our guy Zach Sim from OrangeBloods.com. And folks, tonight we are going to talk some baseball. We're going to take you away from those football blues and those transfer portal blues, and we're going to talk a little 2026 Texas baseball. How you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic, man. It's great to be back and talking some Texas baseball. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, everybody have good Christmases and New Year's and all that good stuff.
Absolutely, man. It was a good little break. Fun to be able to sit back and watch the football that was going on, but just counting down the days till February.
Yeah, man, it's come up so fast. It seems like the older we get, the faster it goes. But that could be all right, I guess. One day that means it'll end, but at least it'll get here fast. Like we'll get to do the fun stuff faster, I guess. So that's good stuff. One quick thing before we get totally started. Longhorn legend Jordan Shipley, I don't know if you guys have heard, had some sort of accident on his ranch today. And he's in pretty rough shape. I think he's in the hospital getting some burn stuff type of stuff done. I don't want to speculate any more than that because that's all I've seen. But thoughts and prayers go out to Jordan Shipley, his family, his folks. I think he's in stable condition is the last thing I saw, but serious condition, obviously, with those types of burns. So man, we'll be hoping that all that works out for Jordan and his folks. And then we'll pray for the transfer portal. We'll pray to get some people in the transfer portal like we need. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit ChinookCeatery.com. Go check those guys out. 8 great flavors. Zach, Marc, and myself argue about which flavor is the greatest flavor. But it doesn't matter. They're all really, really good. So get over there, use our promo code HornTakes, get 10% off your order. Follow everybody on Twitter. All that stuff's right there in the banner going across the bottom. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. Hit the little notification bell. You'll get notified every time we do a show. This will be a weekly occurrence on the Horn Take podcast. I hope. It was last year. I hope we can keep it together and keep doing it this year. But let's talk about it, guys. Jump in the chat if you're with us tonight. Leave us your comments, questions. There's a whole lot to talk about. All right, we're coming on. Let me set the stage, and then we'll get into the real conversation here. Coming off a 2025 season that I think, Schloss's first year here at Texas, I don't think a lot of us really knew what to expect. There was all kinds of talk about, in the offseason headed up to last year, it's College World Series or bust for Texas. That's just the way it is, or at least Super Regional or bust for Texas. That's just the way it is when you're at Texas. We had a lot of new faces on that team, especially on the pitching side of the house. I felt like we had some lineup guys come back, and I feel like as we head into 2026, we're almost the exact opposite. I feel like I was going back and looking at the pitching staff, and I was like, wow, that's a name that contributed. That's a name that contributed. I'm not just talking about contributed, like did some really great things off the bump. And now we're looking as we head in, we're not sure what we've got necessarily in the lineup. We got a whole lot of new faces. Few guys went MLB draft. A lot of guys went transfer portal. But coming off that 2025 season, which, again, was kind of a mixed bag, we did win the SEC in year one, which is awesome. I don't think a lot of people expected that. Really tough league. They were able to get it done in the regular season, but they just kind of fell short in that home regional. I think we had some injuries down the stretch that kind of set us back and kind of got us in a position pitching-wise where it just wasn't quite the same team over a weekend series. But let's talk about that 2026 team. Zach, we'll start with you because I know you're the big baseball guy around town. You've been watching baseball, and that's all you've been doing because you're not a football guy. Zach is just straight baseball maniac. Just give us your overall high-level thoughts from the fall. I know both you guys were over at Dell Diamond to see some of the fall ball action earlier this year, so I'll be interested to hear about that. Zach, high level, what do you make of this 2026 Texas baseball team so far?
Yeah, I think, what I've seen that I really like is the young guys that have come in and ready to contribute, right? Like oftentimes you see the young freshmen come in and they're trying to do too much. They're trying to rush. They're trying to get over their skis or throw real hard. It's their first time in that kind of environment. That's not what you saw at all. You saw some guys that were really guys that were really in the groove and were able to really look good. And it wasn't like they were facing just nobody. Lamar, in my opinion, is a really good baseball team, and they're going to contend for a field of 64 spot. Texas Tech, on the other hand, is I think they're going to struggle again this year, but um, just overall, I think the freshmen really impressed. And then, from a pitching or from a hitting side, the two big names, they did exactly what you wanted them to do right out of the gate. So Carson Tenney, Aiden Robbins came out and they flashed, right? And that's guys that Texas is going to rely upon at the heart of their offense, and they showed that they could do that in both games. And so I think that was really impressive. So yeah, I think the guys that they've added and the guys that they brought back, it gives them a chance to make another run.
Yeah, the fall ball was kind of interesting because we saw them have that big deal with Tech over there at Dell Diamond. I think I want to say they played like a 15 inning scrimmage type deal, and Texas just absolutely ran Tech out of the place. I think I know early on I was watching and seeing a little of the updates from you, Zach. I'm pretty sure just kind of the score, and it got out of hand pretty quick. I don't really know how it ended, but I think Texas won that one comfortably. Then they go home, I think the next weekend, and they play a little deal with Lamar, and they end up losing. And I think it was like 8-1, 8-2, something like. I may be off on the score, but I felt like it was a lot to not much, and maybe I'm wrong on that one. Mark, you were there. I bet you at both of those for sure. I know you were at the one out at Dell Diamond. Did you go check out the Lamar deal?
I was at both of them, and yeah, a little bit of what you're saying. It was a tale of two different games, man. We looked really impressive and ready to go in that Tech game, firing on all cylinders, a lot of offense, and didn't see much of that against Lamar. But again, it's a fall ball game, not taking much out of that. Like Zach mentioned, Lamar's a solid squad, but it was exciting just to see some of the new guys out there. Get accustomed to the new faces, new names that are going to be on the 2026 team. So it's a good opportunity to see them. And, going back to your question about 26, I'm just super excited. I think one of the things that I'm most excited about with this team is the veteran pitching that we're going to have returning. I think that's just going to be so key to just have that foundation for our team in 2026. It's going to be huge when you get into SEC play. I really like the way the schedule sets up as well, right? I think a lot of the SEC teams nowadays are going with that pretty soft out of conference, play a lot of games at home, get your team ready to go for that SEC gauntlet, and have 3 or 4 weeks to kind of get things in order. So I think it sets up well. Really, really looking forward to seeing how the new guys do. Y'all already mentioned Robbins and Carson Tenney, guys like that, but also excited to see some of the new pitching, the freshman guys that are out there, and some of the guys in the field, outfielders as well. So it's going to be a fun time, man. I always really enjoy the first couple weeks of the season as you get accustomed to the new squad and kind of seeing how all the pieces come together.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that Lamar team. I mean, Lamar was a school, I believe. I don't think they made the tournament last year, and I'm probably wrong on that, or could be wrong on that. But I think they went 2 back-to-back seasons before that where they made the tournament. Certainly, they made it 1 year.
They won 40 games plus, so it was back-to-back seasons with 40 wins.
Yeah, so yeah, as you alluded to, that's a good group of players. They play good baseball at Lamar. Baseball is one of those weird games where you just have a bad day sometimes, and you just hope it's not at the wrong time. But yeah, I don't take a lot out of the fall ball at all. But I wanted to get some insight from you guys about who kind of flashed as you were at both of those games. Talk to us about some names that maybe we don't know about right now, or maybe we've just heard the name, but we haven't really got a chance to see them. I'll start with you, Zach. Throw a couple names out there from those fall ball games of guys that maybe some Texas Longhorn fans should be looking to contribute as we move into 2026.
Yeah, I think if you start off with on the pitching side, the guys that I think you're going to see a lot of, honestly, is the freshman the quartet, if you will, right? So you've got Brett Crossland, the kid out of Arizona, freshman. You got Michael Winter, he's out of Kansas. You got Brody Walls out of North Texas. And then you got Sam Cozart out of South Carolina. And maybe that's North Carolina, sorry. But the thing that impressed, again, you saw it during the Texas Tech game and you saw it again against Lamar, from Brody Walls, he's super athletic. He's played shortstop most of his life. Now, he also pitched, but he's never really been a true pitcher only. He comes in, he kind of brings that attitude, that mentality to the mound. So he's just competitive as all get out. He flashes at 96, but he was throwing the changeup and the slider for a strike. And so that's a guy that you look at and you go, okay, let's give him a little run on Tuesday nights. Let's start easing him in. And if you've got to project out at the middle of SEC play, now you've got another arm that you can roll out that's throwing 96. You look at a guy like Brett Crossland, big guy, he's running up to 97, 98, and he just has super control. Like he's got a kind of a pitcher made body. And the fact that he's going to be durable, he's going to be strong, he's going to keep that velo throughout. But the fun thing for Texas fans, I think, as they see him progress, is that during high school, he kind of didn't really. He wasn't one of those kids that had a pitching coach and had all these things out in Arizona. He was kind of self-made. So now you put him under the tutelage of a guy like Max Wiener, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, he's unlocking a new pitch. He's adjusting the shape of this one. He's offering a lot more than what he had. And then Michael Winter, which everyone was really excited about, which was funny because he's a guy that you would think had all the offers in the world. He had 100 strikeouts for 6 walks his senior season. But he was committed to Dartmouth, and the only reason he didn't end up at Dartmouth in the Ivy League is because the coach left. So Texas was able to pluck him out of there and keep him away from the MLB draft. And he sits low to mid 90s, but he's a hammer, and he hammers the zone and he throws it over the plate, and he's not afraid to attack. And then with Cozart, another big dude. I don't know if you see him in person, but when him and Crossland walk in, you're like, wait, is this the tight end room of Texas football, or is this the baseball team? It's 6'6", 6'8". Like they're big dudes.
Yeah.
And he's been described as the best plug and play strike thrower, and he showed it, right? Like he has multiple pitches. He can show the velo, he can show the breaking ball. And so those guys, I thought, with all the hype that came along with these big arms, sometimes it's always like, what am I going to see? But they really lived up to the billing. And then honestly, and this might surprise some people, the guy that surprised me a lot was Jason Flores. The guy who was not fighting his mechanics at all. This guy is Mr. Thigh, like he is built like a tank. And he wasn't fighting it, though. He was using all of that, and he looked so much more confident. He looked so much more fluid in his release, and it really showed. And then the other guy, honestly, that probably doesn't get the love that he probably should because he dealt with some shoulder stuff last season, but he was just the rock in Tuesday nights, was Cade Being. Comes out this fall, and again, he looks so much more confident. He doesn't look like he's struggling to get that velo. He looks like he's out there just having fun. Right. And so the confidence is there, the strength is there, and he's not battling his own body. And so I think he looked really good. And then again, hitting wise, Aiden Robbins couldn't have done anything more than just be an absolute badass. Carson Tinney, his first hit during the Texas Tech game was 108 off the bat, just a liner through the left side by the shortstop, who had no chance at all other than look at it and go, okay, base hit. So, he showed what he can do at the plate. And then I think defensively, everyone wanted to see, like, we lost Galvan. Who's running this offense? Who's manning the plate? How is he controlling it? How is he running with the pitchers? He looked very comfortable with the pitchers. He did a great job framing. So, yeah, those were the guys that really stood out to me during the fall.
All right, Mark, for you, I know Zach named like the whole team, but who did you see out there? And what kind of flash did you in those 2 fall ball games?
So I'll give you my take on the Texas Tech game. As we got home to left field for Lamar, that scrimmage kind of got away from us. We used it more as like a social event. We were meeting new players' families.
There you go.
Talking to people that we hadn't seen since June. So that game, I wasn't quite as locked in as I was at the Dell Diamond. But to answer your question, I was really focused a lot on the faces that we know in different roles, right? I was very interested to see Casey Borba slide over to first base and see him play over there. I thought he looked pretty comfortable in that scrimmage against Tech. I was very curious to see what he was going to look like there at first. To be honest with you, like I really liked the way that he was playing at third at the end of last year. So I was really interested to see what that slide was going to look like. And then A-Rod, right, moving over to shortstop, replacing Flores, getting a peek at him was really fun. And man, I think he's really just going to take off this year in his sophomore campaign. I'm really excited to see him in that spot and to step in as more of a frontline leader of the team. And you know, the guy that Zach mentioned as well, Robbins, I was very curious to see him. You know that he put up very gaudy numbers at his previous school, but I'll be honest, sometimes I don't know what to think of that, playing at a small school and then stepping in to SEC competition. But you can just tell, man, in the box, that guy's just a hitter. He's locked in. He's all over the ball. He's got speed on the base pass. Looks very comfortable in the field. So I think the position players are really what I was looking at, and really enjoyed what I saw there. I think we're going to have some solid play in the infield with Mendoza and A-Rod up the middle, and you know, really wanted to see what the outfield is going to settle and what that's going to look like. You know, I know all of us have talked text and whatnot about Jonah and waiting to get him back and see him on the baseball field again. So obviously he wasn't a part of those fall ball games, but I'm looking forward to seeing him come back in February and seeing how he can produce for the team. Because if you think about everybody we lost from last year's team and, you know, from the outfield perspective, there's a lot of production and experience to replace there. And we're going to need to see some guys step in there and be comfortable in those spots.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the outfield is definitely like kind of the unknown for this team, but I think they've done a good job bringing some guys in, and we all saw what Jonah Williams could do when he got some consistent reps. Yeah. He was a guy that produced big time. You go back to that Auburn series last year, he won us a couple baseball games in that Auburn series just with his. I mean, you never do anything on your own, but he had some really big knocks in that Auburn series. So I didn't mean to cut you off, Zach. So I'll let you go ahead. Go get it, bud. What'd you have?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, you know, the funny thing is the name we didn't really talk about at all, which I think is absolutely a positive thing. In fact, is A-Rod. He looked like he belonged. You know, he challenged the coaches over the season or after the season, said, I want to prove myself. Coaches said, do it. Go prove yourself. So he spent all summer in the DFW area, working his body over, you know, healing the hand up, just getting right. And he didn't look like he was at a place at shortstop. Yeah. He moved well. He's not going to be flashy. You know, he's not a Faltini. He's not a Hamilton. He's not one of those type of guys. But he's just a dirtbag. He's always in position. He makes all the throws. I was watching him do long toss a couple weeks ago, and the dude's got a rifle for an arm. I don't know if people realize it, but like he was sitting there launching him from the right field wall and just bouncing him off the Yeti yard just with ease. And this is a couple weeks after he just had surgery on his hand. So he is very good. You know, the lights have to turn on, like he's got to do it against SEC teams. But I think everyone should take a lot of comfort in the fact that him and Timo are basically interchangeable at this point at shortstop. If anything, A-Rod probably offers you a little bit more from a athletic version of the two. But that was one thing I also took away. So.
Yeah, you look at A-Rod. A-Rod's an interesting guy because you look at him and he, you know, he still looks like a kid to me. Like he hasn't really grown into his body yet.
I think 15 pounds.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I saw a picture of him, you know, from a few weeks ago at one of the events you were at, Mark. I think I saw a picture of, you know, on your wall, and I was like, man, you know, he still just looks like a kid to me. But we forget, I'm pretty sure he was 2-time 6A All-State shortstop. He's a guy that made a bunch of really great plays out in the outfield last year when we needed some help in left field. He made some plays out there. So, yeah, I think athletically, he's certainly a guy that can play that shortstop position. As I hear you guys talk, I'm looking at the comments, and this is kind of the microcosm. We're throwing a ton of names out there. Deep team, righty and lefty arms with varied arsenals, strong lineup. It's yet to, I mean, I think the pieces are there for the lineup, but we got to see it, right? Like we just don't know. And we'll find out pretty quick like what that lineup's going to look like and what they're going to be able to do. But pitching on this team, I think, and again, I could always be wrong. I look at this team and I think pitching is 1,000%, at least at this point, preseason, the strength of this team. I mean, look at these names. You got it, and you mentioned one of them already, Cade Bing. You got Luke Harrison. You got Dylan Valanis. You got Jason Flores. We mentioned him earlier. Ruger Riojas, Max Grubbs, Thomas Burns. Those are a bunch of guys right there that did a lot of work for Texas last year and a lot of good work for Texas last year. And a lot of those guys, all but two of them, started games for Texas last year at various times during the year. So there's a ton of experience coming back from that pitching staff, even with, losing a guy like Spencer, which certainly hurt us last year, and we'll have to replace that for an entire season this year. But then I even look, you got guys like Hudson Hamilton, Cody Howard, Ethan Walker, guys that played, that threw some innings later in the season last year and some good innings later in the season last year. That's just more depth. And then you got a guy like Connor McCreary who battled some injuries last year, didn't play very much, didn't pitch very much. He's back. He's a big arm. And so, man, you just look at what they have now, and then to hear Zach talking about, hey, this freshman, and he's talking about all pitchers, that just makes me think, man, and pitching wins. Talk to us about that. Like, if you had to say how much better we look as a pitching staff headed into 2026 than we did headed into 2025, handicap that for us, Zach. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that this entire staff, not just Max, wanted to add in this offseason was more stuff. And that doesn't always mean necessarily velo. It doesn't necessarily mean, number one pitcher in the nation, anything like that. But they needed more stuff. They needed more unique looks, more unique shapes. And so that's what they did. They went out and got a guy like Hayden LeFew, right? This is a guy that's going to be an anchor, and he's going to be every bit of the part of the bullpen that you saw from a guy like Max Grubbs or Ruger last season. But when you can bring him in and he's sitting there 6'7", and he's coming over the top, and then you've got a guy like Devo or Dylan Valantis, and he's coming with this 7-foot odd angle, and then you run a guy like Ruger Riojas out there, and then you run another lefty like Harris, like just all the different angles, the shapes, and the looks that they're going to be able to provide. Plus, they really did add stuff. I mean, they got guys that can throw really hard.
Yeah.
So I think one of the fun facts this fall was their average velo went up by almost 7 points from last season to this fall.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy. Like that means you're sitting low, maybe 90 miles an hour average all the way up to 96, 97. Like that's a huge turnaround.
Yeah.
And so Texas absolutely has the talent and the pieces to win a championship based on its pitching. It's all going to come down to where the hitting is at. I think you've got to feel very comfortable with 1 through 6, and then 7 through 9, 7 through 10 or 11, really. That's where we need answers. That's where they're going to have to put in the time. You're going to see what they're going to be made out of.
Yeah.
Thoughts, Mark, on the pitching?
So excited, man. It reminds me of old school Texas teams that used to always end up in Omaha, right? Where you knew you had that advantage on the mound every game. I remember being at games at Dish Falk years back where it's like, we got 4 or 5 runs. I'm thinking to myself, game over.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, hey, if we can just grab a couple, we're going to win this game. So, I think the 2 points that I wanted to make about pitching, and this is not to say that I doubt the pitching in any way, is that, one, you want to see these guys come back. And like Zach said, he mentioned rise in velocity, but build on what we saw from last year, right? I do think it's also fair to say that you could argue that a couple of those guys maybe overachieved a little bit last year and were even better than we expected them to be, right? And now you kind of worry about, all right, are they gonna keep that upward trajectory here, or is it possible that they flatten out a little bit? So I'm hoping that that's not going to be the case. I obviously trust our staff, love Max as the pitching coach, and I'm confident these guys are going to pick up where they left off. But, you want to see it come together. And then, Zach, another thing that I was wanting to ask you tonight is, this is a fantastic problem to have, but when you go through that laundry list of names, right? You only play 4 games a week.
Yeah.
And it's just like we have so many good arms. How do
Yeah.
you keep all of those mouths fed and how do you keep those guys happy? Right? Because at the end of the day, if you got a starting pitcher that can go 5 or 6, right? You got 10, 12 guys with ability that are only going to get 8 or 9 innings over the course of a weekend. So, wanted to get your thoughts about that, about how you kind of find the roles for all of these guys and get them in positions where they're, comfortable, happy, getting used to, enough and getting enough innings.
Yeah, I think one thing you have to take into factor is, even looking at last season, the SEC, you average as a starter, you average 4.2 innings per game.
Yeah.
Right. So you're using a lot more guys than you might otherwise have used historically, right? You don't have Morgan Cooper who's giving you 8 innings every single time, or Youngman who's going out there and you're like, well, is it a complete ball game or is he going 8 innings tonight? Well,
Yeah.
let's just kick back a beer and watch him dominate. So that's one aspect of that is you're going to have more guys roll through. Then the other aspect is they're not going to throw these freshmen to the fire immediately, right? They're going to ease them in. They're going to be able to play some situational baseball. They're going to be able to really control, I think, what you see from Tuesday nights. This past year, Tuesday night, it was like, hey, we really need Cade Bean to go pitch 5 innings because we don't know who the hell's coming in behind him. And it might be guys that haven't pitched a lot, right? And so now, to your point, you've got guys like Ethan Walker who weren't even traveling with the team until about midway point. What do you do with him? Well, you play a lot more situational baseball. And so I think you're going to see a lot more guys come in and only pitch an inning, only pitch 6 outs maybe. So that's one way you do that is you're able to mix and match so that by the end of the year, you have a team that's really strong. They've got enough innings under them that they're not like they're not underused, if you will. Like they come in and they're ready to go, but they're also not burnt out. I mean, end of last year, Harrison, Grubbs, Ruger, all those guys, they were wearing pretty damn thin because there just was no depth behind them. So.
Yeah, we got to the end of the season last year, and obviously Spencer going out was a huge loss because he was kind of the setup guy that got you started for the weekend, and he was one of the more consistent starters. I felt like, and I felt like he was a guy that could go consistently deeper than some of the other guys. So Friday night was just almost like a joke. Like it was really tough to beat Texas on a Friday night when you had Spencer pitching as well as he did, and then a Dylan Valanis coming out of the bullpen to close it out. That was a tough out for anybody against Texas. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think the only team that beat them on Friday, that combo was LSU. And and they're the eventual national champions. So they had a good group of guys, obviously. So, yeah, and that went away. And then we had to pile on some guys, and we didn't have a ton of depth. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit too, Zach, because I think that's a great point. We're talking about all these 22 of the 41 guys on this roster are pitchers right now. And so that is a lot of people to feed. That is a lot of people to try to figure out, like, how do we start? What is the plan for this guy over here? Like, you're going to have 3 starters. You're going to have some bullpen guys that you want to be the bullpen guys. But that's what, 6, 7, 8 arms. You got another 14 arms that you got to look at and go, what do I do with these guys so that if something like that happens, you've got some guys ready that can come in and maybe not perform as well, clearly, but it's not such a mad dash. So I wonder what we'll see earlier in the season. Do you think we'll see a lot of different guys throw less innings as we start early out this season?
For sure. They're not going to go tax these starting pitchers. I mean, so pitching rotation wise, I think it was asked in the chat, but my expectation is there's realistically 6 guys in the mix right now. I think it's going to boil down to 3 guys. They would like it to be Volantis, Flores, and Harrison. That gives you a nice left-right left matchup. The other aspect of that is if a guy like Hayden LeFew did come in and he was to start a game, well, now you have really 4 primary starting pitchers, and that's not even including Cade Being. So now you have 5 starting pitchers, right? Which is a great problem to have. But yeah, I think early on, especially a guy like Volantis, they're not going to go and run him out there for 8 innings against UC Davis. Like that's not something you're going to see, especially in the early season in February. They're going to want to get those guys, even though they're on a 16-week ramp, which they're already on. They've already started. I saw them throwing, like I said a couple weeks ago, they're going to want to build them up. And so at the point where they reach May, that's where you're really hitting on all cylinders and you're getting ready for that postseason push.
Mark, any thoughts from you on this pitching group? Like, I wonder, we've already had a couple questions in the chat. Like, what's that starting rotation going to look like? I know. Well, I know I've heard. I don't know how it's going, but I've heard that obviously they want a Dylan Valanis to be one of those guys, and I've even seen where they think he might be a Friday night guy. You do have a Cade Bing. You got a Luke Harrison that started last year. You're pretty sure he's going to be in the mix with that first three guys. And then you didn't. Jason Flores is kind of a name that surprises me a little bit. Not that Jason Flores did anything wrong last year, but there's just so many guys coming. You got a Ruger Riojas is a guy that played a lot down the stretch last year, and really, he's the guy I think that got hurt the most when Spencer went out, is because I thought Riojas was just so good in that Saturday role. And then or maybe it was Sunday, and we had to bump him up to Friday because Spencer went out, and it just didn't work right. It didn't work out the way we all wanted it to. But Mark, how do you think all this is going to play out? If you had to guess the three guys that are going to be the weekend starters and that fourth that's going to be a Tuesday starter, what do you think that looks like?
Man, I think I'd be on the same page with what Zach was putting out there, right? I think one of the guys that I would absolutely pencil in would be Harrison, right? I think he's a no-doubter for the weekend rotation. And I got to be honest, guys, like I really want to see Valanis in that Friday night role. As an old school Texas baseball fan, man, I look back at the teams that have won championships in Austin, and you had that Houston Street in the bullpen. You had Jay Brent Cox in the bullpen. Right. I really loved having Dylan coming out of that bullpen in the 8th or 9th inning when it was just game over. Right. Yeah. And I know we have some other talented arms that can slide into that role. But, I loved having that closer position kind of solidified. So it's going to be exciting to kind of see him step into that Friday night role and looking to really see what he's able to bring to the table there. And Zach and I were talking a couple weeks ago. He was telling me about Flores and kind of the position that he's in to potentially be a starter. And I really like Flores quite a bit. He's very talented. Had a little bit of control issues early in conference play last year, but he's got a ton of ability. So I think those three would probably be my guess as of right now. And again, man, that Friday night role for Valanis, if he can really just kind of slide in there and be as dominant starting a weekend series as you saw him out of the bullpen in periods of last year, that's just going to be incredible, man. If you can really have that ace that you roll out there that just scares the shit out of the other team when they take the mound, that's invaluable when you get into high leverage series and even when you get on into road series and SEC play. So I think those would be my three, and I really like to hear that Bing is looking good as well, right? I'm a really big fan of that kid. Obviously we're really close with his family as well, and want to see that kid do some good things in 2026. So really pulling for Cade.
Yeah, you mentioned Cade and Jason Flores. Guys that pitched some really good innings last year, but just kind of the consistency piece of it was something that they just couldn't get locked in. And I think for a guy like Cade Bing, a lot of that was just they changed so much on him so fast. With the way he was pitching, he was getting more spin on the ball than he was getting at JC, and he just didn't know how to control it, I think. And so we'd see him get a little wild at times, a little out of the zone at times. And really the same thing with Flores. Flores was so interesting last year because he'd have like 2 or 3 just like completely ridiculous commanding innings. And then like he would come out and it was like, I went up to the mound and pitched. Like it just something just, changed for him in that time frame, that in between innings. And we saw some control stuff, but yeah, I'm going to miss the most. If Dylan Valanis is the starter, I'm going to miss Donza Kuduro playing over the loudspeakers as he's running out onto the field. I love that song. I don't know why they picked that song for him, but I think it's kind of funny that was his song. He doesn't even know why they picked that song for him, but he's like, whatever. I don't care. But that was cool to your point, Mark. Like him just coming out there doing the little skip hop, and you just like, man, he's fixing to like strike out a bunch of dudes. Yeah, this is about to be ugly for them. I wanted to ask you guys, and I think this is probably a big one for you, Zach. How hard of a transition is that for a guy like a Dylan Valanis? Comes in as a freshman last year, kind of under the radar, and goes out and just becomes this freaking massively dominant closer, wins SEC Freshman of the Year. He's an All-American like 15 times over. How big of a transition is it for a guy like that to go from that closing role and move into any starting role, much less that Friday night role?
I'd say for most normal people, it'd be a pretty big transition, right? Now, the matter of fact is that he threw a lot of innings, so the arm's used to it.
Yeah.
But for Dylan, I mean, he's a really special kid. One, he was only a starter in high school. He didn't ever come out of the bullpen. The only time he came out of the bullpen was actually at Texas. So the good news is like he comes from that kind of pedigree and that mentality. Sure. And then speaking of mentality, the thing you always love about Dylan is the fact that there is no up, there's no down. It is literally, and he truly means it. It is every pitch. He is just refocusing, which is insane to think about, like at his age and his talent level and all that. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that'll be an adjustment for him is as he goes through the lineup the second time and the third time, is his stuff as good as we think it is, or as good as it has portrayed itself as a closer, right?
Right.
Now, the counter argument to that would be, well, everyone's got tape on him. They got more and more tape on him. It wasn't like he was changing his pitches throughout the season, but there's something about seeing a guy for a second or even a third time. And I
from the plate, I think. Yeah, you see the film and you can learn a lot from that. But I think, being at the plate and seeing it again, probably a huge advantage.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's the big thing for him. And then for Flores, again, consistency. Like those two guys just have to earn it at this point. The talent's there, the mentality's there, the desire is there from both the staff and from them. I mean, you can pretty well take your Sharpie out at this point and put Harrison in as the Sunday guy.
Yeah.
The other two guys that where do they live? Where do they sit?
Yeah.
And then someone else asked, well, who's going to be the closer now that Dylan's gone? Who's the setup guy? I really, a guy that we haven't talked about is Thomas Burns. He's another guy that could be a starter for Texas.
Yep.
But he's rolling out there, and as a relief pitcher, I mean, he's just casually tossing 98, 99, 100. I mean, he's doing that in the fall when they're not full ramp and they're only throwing 3 outs. I don't know that he's going to be the closer necessarily, but he's going to be on that back end along with Cal Higgins, the big bear from Western Kentucky. And you got to think those two guys are going to be prominent in those two roles just because of what they bring and the kind of throw or the pitches they can throw. So,
yeah, no doubt we got a lot of arms. It'll be interesting to see over the first few weeks of the season how all that sorts itself out. Really excited to see some of the younger guys, the freshmen that are coming in, because I know I remember what was it like? It was during the season last year. I remember seeing some weekends where Zach was like 2026 commitment, 2027 commitment, and there was like 6 of them every day, and they were all pitchers. And I'm like, man, Max Wiener is loading up, and that's a bad thing for the rest of the SEC and the rest of the country. I'm ready to see some of those arms come in and see what they can do. Let's change gears a little bit. Let's flip over to the offensive side of the ball. 2025, hot and cold, I think is the best way to describe what it was. When it was on, it was tough. But there would go into these stretches where it was just not on. Like we just couldn't get extra base hits. We couldn't get hits with guys in run or with runners in scoring position. We're losing a lot of guys off of that offense. You look at just the positions, and guys played a lot of different places last year, but we're losing right field. We're losing center field. We're losing left field, at least by proxy. We played so many guys at left field that will not play left field this year probably. So I'm going to count that as we're losing that. So we're essentially replacing the entire outfield. Catcher's gone, shortstop's gone, DH, first base. So there's a whole lot of new guys that are going to have to step in on this lineup and make it go. The flip side of that is we bring back some guys that played really awesome last year. I think you got to start with Mendoza at second base. Really good as a leadoff last year. Borba's a guy that we've already mentioned him. He's a corner guy. He can play third or first. So it'll be kind of interesting to see where he lands on that. I feel like first base is probably his home. And then you got A-Rod that played some third base, played some outfield. Now he's flipping back over to shortstop, so that's good. Jonah Williams out of that outfield. And then you got a guy like, I think of like a utility guy, and this is a guy that, man, I can't remember what series it was last year, but he had a really great hit at a really great time. Jaden Duplantier played some outfield, played some second base. So those are like, to me, and maybe I'm missing some guys, but I feel like that's the nucleus of what's coming back off of what contributed in any way last year. Let's talk about some of the new names on the offense. You guys have named some of them: Carson Tenney, Timo Becerra, Aiden Robbins. Aiden Robbins, if I'm not mistaken, was the guy that went out to Cape this summer and just absolutely crushed it, right? Yeah, so clearly that's a guy. You got a Josh Livingston, Ashton Larson. Talk to us about the rest of those guys and where they may fit in. And I think everybody really wants to know what that outfield is going to look like, because I think the infield, pretty much everybody kind of has an idea. Mark, I'll start with you. What do you think of some of these other guys, Ashton Larson, Josh Livingston, and what do you think that outfield kind of ends up looking like when first pitch happens? What, in just like 40-something days?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, right, I'm penciling in Jonah and Robbins as having two of the positions in the outfield, at least from my perspective. So I think that's kind of settled. I liked what I saw from Larson in that tech scrimmage at Dell Diamond. He looked pretty good at the plate. Have a couple buddies of mine that are LSU fans that have said, year before last, he was more of a contributor on that LSU team. I believe it was.
Yeah, he was like a freshman all SEC guy.
Yeah. So a lot of potential there. I'm excited to see him play. But I'm probably going to steal a little bit of Zach's thunder here. Zach was actually telling me that Anthony Pack Jr. Has made quite an impression in the outfield as well, and he's going to be a guy that gets a look out there. So I'm really excited to see him. I haven't seen a ton of him play to this point, but it does seem like we have some good options out there. And Zach, I'm kind of curious to kind of hear from you what you project as the starting outfield and where you see a guy like Jonah settling in. And I do agree with you, Sean. I feel like the infield is pretty well set right now, right? I'm not personally expecting any surprises there. I think you're going to see Becerra at third, Mendoza and A-Rod up the middle with Borba at first. You're going to have Livingston, who, can maybe sub in there on the corners, play DH, and then Tenney behind the plate. So I feel like it's the outfield where we have some work to do. And yeah, I love the shout out to Duplantier as well, man. He's been around forever. Just a diehard Longhorn. He's always sliding in wherever he's needed. And I'm really hoping that he gets some good opportunities this year to contribute as well.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see Gumbo get some run again. And man, I can't remember which game it was, which series, but he had a pretty clutch hit down the stretch that scored a run. I think solidified the game for us. So might have won the damn thing for us. I don't remember. I saw a lot of games last year and had a lot of beers. You guys will have to forgive me. Zach, let's talk that outfield. That's the question, I think, that everybody wants to know. And we'll start with Jonah Williams. Where's Jonah Williams going to slide into this, and where does he fit?
Yeah, he's heir apparent to center field. I mean, he's going to be the guy. He's done with football. He was in the batting cages when he could take time off of football during the season, and he was over there 3 or 4 times. That wasn't the coaches asking him to come over either. That was him wanting to be part of the team. Schlossnagel made a really good point. He said, look, Jonah wants to be part of this team. He's seeking out the baseball guys that are new at the Tank, which is the big athletic nutrition center, whatever. He's like, he was going out and seeking them out and sitting down and having lunch with them to get to know them and understand who they are. So I think that says a lot about, one, the kind of kid he is, the character and the energy he brings to the program. But, it's all hands on deck. He is the guy that is expected to come in and win center field day one. Aiden Robbins certainly could play center field. That's where he played during the Cape. Just from a defensive positioning, the way he positions his body and reacts to the ball, I think you're going to see him in right field. And then the big battle, in my opinion, which I think will be the most fun to watch, is going to be Larson and Anthony Pack out in left field. I'll be very honest. If you had told me Anthony Pack would be winning this job maybe 3-4 months ago, I'd say, ooh, that's probably not a very good thing, right? Texas can't go into SEC play and rely upon a freshman in the left field to come up with that offense. But he's come a long way. He's put on weight. He's put on muscle. He looks very confident at the plate. The thing I liked about when I saw his at-bats was it wasn't too fast for him. It wasn't too much for him. He stayed very centered. It was like he was learning literally every single pitch. And that says a lot about the mentality they brings as well. There's a lot of raw clay there, but they've been able to work with him very quickly. And so I think by the end of the year, I think you probably will see Anthony Pack win that job.
Mm-hmm.
To start the season, you very well might see Larson out there. As you said, he's a freshman all SEC or all freshman SEC team or whatever it was,
right.
His freshman year. Last year, he dealt with some injuries, and then just the amount of talent that LSU has, he got played over. Like, that's just what happens when you are struggling and pushing to get back in. That's tough. But he's got the ability. He's got to stay healthy. He came in with an injury. He played at the Cape some, and he did well up there, but he's got to stay healthy. And that's his thing. But the same can be said of Jonah, right? Like, he was injured last season with that hamstring.
Mm-hmm.
He dinged up his shoulder during football. Now it was his right shoulder, but he dinged it up 3 weeks back now. So I think that's what you'll see from the outfield. And then, yeah, as Mark said, I mean, the infield's basically set. You're going to see Tinney on his days off, probably at first base.
Mm-hmm.
He actually plays a really good first base. He's a great defender. He receives the ball well, which is no surprise. But then you have a guy like Josh Livingston who can slide in at third base, so that they could give Becerra a day off, or they could give A-Rod a day off and put him in left field if needed, right? So you've got a lot of guys that are very interchangeable throughout. And then from an infield perspective, the guy that I think people probably overlook some, but he's led the team in batting average is Mendoza, right? Mendoza is coming back, and he spent the summer, again, transforming his body. First time I saw him, I was like, this is not the same Ethan that we saw last year. Like, he looks like a grown man now. He put on like 25 pounds or 20 pounds.
Really?
He's stacked. And
Nice.
if you look at his exit velos, you look at his bat speed, you look at all the various metrics, it shows. I mean, he's hitting the ball harder. He hit a couple balls against Texas Tech in Round Rock. And that park plays very large to center field, and it was like vast majority of SEC parks, that ball is a home run.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what he brings, because he's adding another dimension to his game, which is instead of being a singles and doubles, he can throw in a couple more home runs. So if he hit 5 last year, you project out that he's going to have 10 this year. You look at Borba having another 10 to 12 home run season like he's been. Livingston throws in 7 to 10. You're starting to see the home run numbers kind of equalize out from having lost to Galvan or having lost to Flores that you knew could go deep when they weren't swinging and missing. So exciting there. Obviously, we talked about Tinney. His big deal is the swing and miss. He's got to continue cutting down on that. He had a pretty rough go at the Cape. Good news is you talked to him and he understood it. Like, he said, like, yeah, I know what I need to work on. And he spent all fall and all summer continuing to work on that. So again, I really like where Texas is at 1 through 6. It's 7 through 11 that I really want to see continue to come on. So
yeah, and I think that was a lot of our conversations last year, where finding those guys, finding the right amount of bats, and then finding them a place on the field, because ultimately a lot of these guys can play baseball defensively, and they can play it at a lot of different places. They've been doing it their whole lives. They're good athletes, right? They're not just locked into certain positions in most cases. It's about finding all those bats. And it's interesting that you mentioned Mendoza. He is kind of like the guy that, you look at his numbers from last year, they're really good. Power wise, he was great earlier. We were sitting here thinking like, oh my God, Mendoza's about to like go on a roll, man. Mendoza's hitting 20 this year. Cause I think he hit like 4, like right off the bat almost. Like it was kind of nuts. And it was all those cold games. And he's getting the ball out of the park and opposite field. And we're like, dang, man. Because Doza, I haven't seen him. At 25 pounds on Mendoza is going to make that a big kid because he did not look like a big kid last year to me.
He's a true bulldozer now.
Yeah, so that's interesting to me, and I'll be looking forward to seeing how that works out. But he's just, he was great all season to me, but not super flashy. Just kind of that workhorse guy that just got it done. Like, if you got guys in the bottom of the order on base, Doza was going to hit them around. He's going to move them around, and so that's good stuff. That's what you want out of a leadoff hitter when he's in that opportunity. Certainly want him to get on base when he's not. So yeah, I think that'll be cool just to see his growth and his development. I think that's the neat thing about college athletics, just in general. Not every kid comes in like ready to be a pro, and it's cool to watch those kids grow up and really come into their bodies and become that type of player. And he's certainly got the skill to be that type of player. So yeah, I'm kind of glad to hear that. Cody says Borb is leading the team in home runs. I'm a home run guy. What do we think? We got some big bats coming in. What do we think on that?
About Borb leading the team?
Yeah, believable.
Yeah, or whoever. I mean, like these could be early season like bullpen challenge type deals right here, where we're buying dinners and lunches.
Will hit more home runs than Borba.
Who do you think?
Carson Tinney.
So you got Tinney as the home run leader early.
I like Cody's call of Borba, man. I think he's really going to take another step forward this season. And man, just thinking back to that regional, was it the K-State game? He hit 3 home runs in one game,
dude. And man, some of those home runs he hit last year, just absolute bombs. I mean, just like crushed the baseball. So yeah, he's definitely a guy that when he's locked in, he's got a ton of power. I don't know, man. I'm not going to talk about home runs because I talked about home runs a lot last year, and shit, it just didn't work out for us at all. I'm not going to do it this year. So the challenge will be you guys, Tinney and Borba. Y'all are betting something. Y'all decide what it is. We'll keep track of it and make fun of it all year. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I wanted to remind Zach that I haven't got my Matzo Ranch.
You still haven't got your meals yet. Yeah. So, well, hey, the alumni game is January 31st. For those of y'all that don't know, get out to the dish. Hopefully we'll have good weather. That's a really cool game to me because you get all the guys coming back to kind of work out and be with the team. And then I think the most interesting thing about it is just the guys you get to see. Like last year, we saw Dylan Valanis start the thing. And we came back and we started talking about Dylan Valanis. And what he became over the course of the season was just so cool to me because I was watching him and I'm like, man, that dude can pitch. Like, who is this guy? And he did really well in that alumni game. And I think we'll probably get to see some of the younger arms get a chance to throw in the alumni game this year as well. So that is always a cool deal for me. Texas starts the season out with UC Davis on February 13th. All home series, I believe, this year because Schloss hates to get on the bus anytime before conference season, which I totally get. By the way, Zach, when do you start your Monday morning talks with Schloss again? When does that start going down again?
Yeah, I got to talk to him. We'll probably start that either right before the alumni game or right after that. Probably right after that. But yeah, we'll be kicking those Monday mornings off again, getting back on that. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, that's always good stuff. So for those of y'all that don't know, Zach has a regular Monday morning conversation that gets thrown up on you. What's it called exactly? So people can go search for it.
Round the Horns.
Round the Horns. Nice. So y'all be looking for that. That's always good stuff. What else do we got here? Yeah, so UC Davis is the first series, and then SEC play starts on March 13th with Ole Miss coming to town. We look at the schedule. You guys were talking about that SEC schedule a little bit earlier. It is a lot to me, and we never know what these teams are going to look like. But just on paper, to me, it looks a lot less scary than the one last year. You get OU at home. You got to go to Texas A&M. You got to go to Vandy. You get Mississippi State at home, who I think that's going to be another interesting team to watch in the SEC this year with a new coaching staff. And I think they cleaned up pretty well in the portal as well. And then you got to go out to Tennessee, which is another interesting thing to me simply because they lost their head man. how's that gonna, are they gonna be able to continue some of the momentum they've had? They'll certainly have players, but how does that dynamic change that they don't have Tony Vitello? So let's talk about expectations as we roll in. We mentioned at the top of the show, they win the SEC. They start to fall a little flat going down the stretch, and then the regional was super disappointing for everybody. I don't think a lot of people thought that was going to happen. I think most people thought if we lost, it would be in the super regional, but that's just not the way it worked out. Talk to us about 2026. Before we do that, let's go back to this time last year where we're talking 2025 and we're saying, man, what could this team do? And everybody's saying regionals, super regionals are bust, but I think in the back of our minds, we're all thinking, we don't really know about this team. How much more confident, and I'll start with you, Mark, how much more confident are you in the 2026 version of the Texas Longhorns, say, making it to a super regional than you were this time last year with the 2025 version?
I'm much more confident. Again, we talked about it. For me, the difference in my confidence level is the pitching, right? We know what we have, and I think we can compete with anybody from a pitching perspective. And I remember us having this conversation a year ago, and I remember saying, year one, got to give Schloss some grace as he kind of gets used to being the skipper here at Texas. And my goal for them last year was just hosting a regional. Top 16 was kind of what I was looking for. And obviously they surpassed that. I didn't think there was any way we'd win the SEC last year. So from a regular season perspective, they surpassed my expectation. Obviously we fell short in the home regional, and that was very disappointing. But I believe you said it earlier, Sean. I don't think there's any way around it right now as a Texas baseball fan. The expectation this year is that we're in the College World Series. And I'm not going to let anybody tell me that anything short of that is a successful season. I'm sorry. The expectation for Texas is that they're playing in the College World Series. It's been several years since we've been to Omaha, and I expect that drought to end this season.
Zach, what say you?
Yeah, I think, you got to feel a lot better about where the pitching is. And which is funny because last year, this time we were talking about home runs. We were talking about Max Ballou, Galvan, Kimball, the whole gang. The script has really flipped. I think for me, the big difference is if you look at the schedule, and this is not going to be a popular take by any means, but if you look at the schedule, things are completely opposite for what they were last year. All the big series are on the road. You're at Auburn, you're at A&M, you're at Vanderbilt, and you're at Tennessee, and then you are also on the road to South Carolina. I think South Carolina is going to be an improved team. I think Auburn's going to have a lot better team than what we saw last year. They had some freshmen that are, they've grown up. Like, they've added some really solid pieces. I do like the fact that they open up with Ole Miss, which sounds antithesis of what you would normally want to say. But Ole Miss, they have the one really good starter in Hunter Elliott. So that's going to be a hell of a fight if it's Devo versus Hunter Elliott on a Friday night. But I don't think they have the same pitching staff that they had last year. And so I think that does bode well for Texas. But if you look at USC or South Carolina, they've got a completely revamped team. And I think Maneri has a better shot after just a disastrous 2025.
Oh, man. You talk about a disaster. Holy shit.
I mean, it was bad. But you look at OU, right? Like, they're replacing their entire rotation.
Yeah, all those big arms are gone.
A&M is replacing their entire rotation. Now, they do get Shane Sadeo back, which is big for them.
Yeah.
The Bama, I think the Bama series is going to be a big one, right? Bama continues to make steps. They've got a superstar in LeBron.
Shortstop, yep.
It's going to be a hell of a series that they're at home. Vanderbilt, I think, is another one where even though Texas is on the road, you're looking at a Vanderbilt team that has a lot of talent, but they've also got some question marks. They're replacing a lot of pitching as well. And so can they replace those pitching? And their hitting wasn't exactly lights out until the end of last season where they kind of went on that roll. Mississippi State at home is going to be a hell of a game in the series because the amount of talent they brought in versus what they had last year, and then the completely different pitching staff, hitting staff, the entire change. That might be one of the series of the entire season, in my opinion.
And it's late. It's later in the season, and I think it's going to give them some time to work out a lot of those kinks, even in the SEC. So I'm excited about that one. I think that's going to be a great one.
But the two teams I think you have to feel good about missing are Florida, because they probably have the best 1-2 punch in the nation from a starting pitching rotation outside of maybe a TCU or an Oregon State. And then this is going to sound crazy again, but I think you feel good about missing Kentucky. Their pitching rotation, their 3-man rotation, is probably as good as anyone in the nation.
I don't ever want to play Kentucky again in baseball. Matter of fact, I don't want to play Kentucky in any sports ever again. They just they're like dirtbags, man. Like, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm talking baseball here. They just are like scrappy little shits. And man, we saw it in that series last year in Lexington. It was ridiculous. I think they took like 15 hits because they just lean over the plate. They're not afraid to get beat up by the ball. So I hope we never play them. Fair enough.
But overall, if you ask, confidence level, I think this is absolutely bare minimum a super regional team, purely because the pitching staff is there, and I think they have enough hitting. And if you look at the hitting, they have good hitting, but I think what you're going to see from this season's team is it's much more complete hitting in terms of there's not as many strikeouts, there's not as much of this kind of nonsense of trying to chase home runs in order to manufacture. You will see a lot more hit and run. You'll see a lot more steals because there's a lot more speed. But they're just from an average perspective. When you look at Temo, when you look at A-Rod, when you look at Mendoza, all these guys, they're all really good average hitters. And so that means you're going to see a lot more consistency. And I just think overall they'll have a better offense this year than they did last year. And if the offense can pull their weight, the two of them that's a dangerous team that you're not going to want to face at the end of the season.
Absolutely. We heard Schloss say it a bunch of times last year in pressers and probably on your show, Zach, talking about his lineup last year and how it just, he kept alluding to, this is not, the type of lineup you want to take into an SEC series. And they were able to make it work because the pitching was so good last year. And I think you take that pitching coming back, and now you've added some guys that have been big time bats in various places, in college, over in the Cape. Like, these are guys that have gone different places and proved they can play and they can hit the ball. And you put all those guys together, and I think the offense is going to look just a lot different. So there's going to be much more room for error, I think, this year than there was last year. Remember last year when guys would go into a slump? Like, the offense just kind of went into a slump. The whole offense just kind of bogged down a little bit. I don't think we'll see that quite as much this year. So I'm with you guys. I've already booked my hotel for Omaha. I haven't paid for it, but I've booked it, so that counts. I'll pay for it when I get there. But yeah, I think this is a team that's a super regional team, 100%. I think the SEC schedule sets up favorably for that to happen for them. And I think, I just think I'm excited. I'm excited to go see what they can do. And we get to see that. And would you put something up there today, Zach? It's like 44 days away, something like that. 45 days,
38 days, Max Scrubs days away.
Max Scrubs days away from some doggone Texas baseball. That is nuts. Well, I'm excited. I can't wait to get back down there to left field and hang out with you guys. That's always a great time. See you, Zach, before the game. I won't be down there though until when are we coming down? Ole Miss will be our first series at home. See, I don't know. I might sneak down there.
You going to Houston?
I'm not. Well, you know what, man? I looked at hotels again the other day. They're still out of their minds. I had to like bring a tent just to get down there. A hotel room is like $600 a night, huh?
Yeah, they're having the largest cheerleading convention in the country in downtown Houston that weekend. So,
well, that's a terrible idea to do that at the same time as there's going to be, because the tickets to that game are good. They're not terrible, and man, they got some good tickets left. Obviously, that's going to be a hell of a fun little start the season off. But yeah, I probably will not be there, unfortunately. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to watch it, which is probably some pay-per-view crap. But whatever, we'll do it. We'll do it to get it done. Guys, man, thanks for joining. Any last thoughts before we get out of here tonight? I know we ran a little over an hour.
And I'm just the same thing I've been saying, man. I'm fired up. I'm ready for it. It's going to come quick. It's going to get my mind off this college football transfer portal nonsense, and just ready for some sports, man, and enjoying Texas baseball out there with our people. So couldn't be more excited.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see some old friends and also meet some new ones. There's a whole lot of folks to meet now, brand new team basically. So that's always fun, good stuff. So yeah, if you're around on January 31st in Austin, get over there to the Dish, find out what time that alumni game is, because it'll be cool. There'll be a lot of big time, big name guys there that are in the majors or in the professional systems right now. And then obviously you'll get to see a lot of the younger guys go out and compete against those guys. And then for sure, get over to the Dish February 13th for that UC Davis series on Friday night. Hopefully the weather will be, man, last year it was cold, I know, early on. Hopefully, I don't know, it's been warm winter so far. Maybe it'll stay warm and we'll just have baseball weather. But certainly get ready for all season tickets, man. If you got season tickets, it's picking that stuff time coming up next week, I think is when it starts. So I'm excited about that. But other than that, thanks for watching with us tonight. Guys, thanks for being here tonight. We'll settle into some sort of rhythm once we get closer to the season. But I thought, man, I got to talk. I got to talk some Texas baseball, and I got to get my mind off all this crap. For those of you that jumped in the chat, we sure appreciate it. You guys have a good night. Hook 'em.